tell us more about that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the fun things that happened because of the show and because of the amount of time it's been on is that I've met over 300 people in all these different industries. And it wasn't obvious at first, but now when you look at that group as a kind of control group, you can almost see a dirty jobs philosophy as it applies to a great many things that a lot of big companies often talk about and many times incorporate into their own branding propositions. Teamwork, for instance. There's a dirty jobs take on teamwork. There's a dirty jobs take on efficiency versus effectiveness. There's a dirty jobs philosophy on following your passion, all these different things. But innovation and imitation was something we did a special on because on the show, we meet a lot of people who solved the problem without necessarily reading the directions. You guys know these people? They don't necessarily go to the book to follow the protocol. A pig farmer in Las Vegas who creates in his backyard a giant mechanism that allows him to boil all of the uneaten food scraps in Vegas casinos, which he collects every morning, into this sort of bouillon base that he feeds his pigs. It's a conveyor system. It's got its own heating unit. It's got all kinds of stuff attached to it. He put this thing together like MacGyver, from parts from a junkyard. We see those people all of the time on the show. But to your point, we also see a talent that a lot of big companies neglect in their eagerness to promote innovation, and that is imitation. Most dirty jobbers understand the importance of imitating. And by imitating, I don't mean derivative thought. I mean the ability to do the same thing over and over again in the exact same way with excellence. I was just talking to one of your guests backstage well, look at it this way. All of the innovation in the world, whether it goes into a smartphone or whether it goes into a computer, if you don't have the ability to replicate that, all you've really done is make a really cool prototype. And there are lots of people out there with big ideas who are laboring in their attic or their basement, and they've come up with something that's kind of cool, but they have no facility for how to do it again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And so on dirty jobs, we meet a lot of those people. Some of them are on factory floors. Some of them are closet inventors. It could be an oyster shucker. I mean, this whole notion of, comparing and contrasting innovation and imitation happened up in Washington with a little woman named Suki who can open an oyster and remove its contents with the speed of light, essentially. I mean, she's so good at what she does, and she does it over and over again. And normally we would associate that talent with a measure of drudgery. But on the show, we try and find people, and they're not hard to find, who do this kind of work really, really well, over and over again, with joy. And if you're going to pay an honest tribute to work, in my opinion, you have to somehow capture the fun of the challenge, and the joy and the adversity, and the pleasure and the pain. That's all. We're going to smash it all together. Yeah.
As you know, here in the room, we have 5,000 SolidWorks users. They are innovators, they are inventors, they are creating product. Based on your experience, what would you share with the audience?
Well, I mean, it sounds like, first of all, I should say, when I was invited here, I looked very quickly at the email and I thought it was a solid waste convention. I was like, hey, 8 years ago I spoke at a solid waste convention in Indiana. I had a ball. I talked for 2 hours and then we all went to a bar across the street. This isn't that. I would say, honestly, that you guys live and work in an interesting space. And as I see it, it's the space between blue and white collar. And one of the great fictions that's been at work in our country for decades is this blue-white collar notion. You know, it's all, we just love the either or. What do you do? Are you in this camp or that camp? The real action today with respect to work, from what I've seen, is what you guys do. It's neither blue nor white, but it's a willingness to get dirty. It's a, you know, we used to call them muddy boot architects where I grew up. You know, builders whose boots were muddy because they were actually in the dirt, using their brain and using their hands contemporaneously. The idea that the world is still bifurcated into one camp or the other, that's just, it's not true. And more to the point, I think it's dangerous. You know, I think it's counterintuitive to look at work that way. So when I find groups of people, whether it's in solid waste or SolidWorks, that are actually, you know, that have some mud on their boots, you know, that have some grime in their fingernails, but still fundamentally are curious and motivated to, as you said, make that sticky tissue, that connected stuff better. That's pretty cool, because that's imitation and innovation combined. And if you can figure out how to be clean and dirty at the same time, you're going to be just fine.
Thank you.